Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Anything Joe's, a collaborative journey through the world of G.I. Joe. My name is Greg Engel.
And I'm Jaren Decker.
And we'll be your host today. Today on Anything Joe's, it's the literal 4th of July. Happy 4th of July, everybody, or happy day after if you're listening to this on release day. Jaren, did you do anything exciting for the 4th of July? Are you doing anything exciting?
Not for the 4th. The 4th is kind of our rest and relaxation. We spent Friday night through last night at the lake, just camping and stuff, which was really fun because we also had thunderstorms and all that. It was a blast. A nice combination of getting sunburnt and soaked.
Yeah, we kind of hung out around the pool today. We're going to grill hot dogs for dinner. Pretty standard 4th of July stuff, but we're kind of in between those two things. So I haven't been out of the pool very long. I feel very heavy.
I'm not a big firework guy, so we didn't really do any of that. Are you?
No, I don't really see that it's very cost effective, but I did pony up and buy some cheap little sparklers for my daughter just because she has not really experienced any fireworks. So I thought this will probably be okay. She probably won't burn the house down with it. So other than that, yeah, I don't think you can see anything from our neighborhood either. So yeah, it's just so expensive, so loud, makes a mess.
Having kids has made me dislike them more because I'm like, it's 11 o'clock, my kids are sleeping, and my neighbors are letting off bombs.
For sure. All right, so there's not a lot of news going on right now, and that's fine because we're here in the holiday. This will probably be a bit of an abbreviated episode, but we both have some recent acquisitions we wanted to talk about, and they're both on both sides of the spectrum. So let's head over to recent acquisitions right now. We'll dig right into it.
Recent acquisitions.
Jaren, I'm going to let you go first since you got your stuff in earlier than me. You basically walk me through this. Did you pre-order these guys through the international fellas?
So I did not pre-order them, no. But I had pre-ordered them through our normal, I think I had these guys through Pulse. And then I saw that they were shipping from our normal guys, our CMD store guys. Which are just over in Canada, so I feel like they probably just walk it across the border because it always shows up tracking just right across, right in New York. So it is the Torpedo Shipwreck Copperhead Wave with the original paint of Bazooka, and then I also got Arctic Bats, which I think a lot of people are getting those in. But I didn't order the Arctic Bats through the international. But this wave is phenomenal. So I got all of them in. I would like to do, and if you would like for us to do a review of them, I'm going to try to get these reviewed this week. So if you want to see it, let me know. That'll encourage me to actually get these things done quicker. But there is not a figure that I'm disappointed with. This whole wave really just knocked it out of the park. I really like it. Actually, Torpedo might be my favorite one from the wave, which is the one I thought was going to be my least favorite. But just the detail on him, the fact that you can they talk about it a lot in the videos, and I always mention it, that you can put all of his gear back on him. It was really fun for me to figure out, okay, well, how do I want to store this and that? And then I was at the lake and I came back home just to get those guys and took them back to the lake with me. So, I took a few pictures of him out on in the lake, and it was pretty cool. It made me want to take more pictures again, just because that figure is absolutely phenomenal.
Now, we didn't talk a lot about this beforehand, but you did mention that you were a little disappointed that Torpedo doesn't have an unmasked head.
Yes. Yeah, that is the only thing that I'm because I like the facial printing and stuff that they do on a lot of these figures. Copperhead doesn't have an unmasked head, but it doesn't make sense for him to have an unmasked head. But for Torpedo, I'm I feel like if I was coming out of the water, I wouldn't want to wear that thing scrunching my face the whole time. So it's just hard. So I'm going to be looking for an alternate head, even just something that looks somewhat similar, or just that has the right skin tone, because it's a really phenomenal figure. But yeah, I would have liked an alternate head. I feel like in a lot of them, I would have liked the alternate head. I do have to say Shipwreck, it is the only figure that I have that I'm ooh, I don't know which one I want to use, because he has the hair piece and he has the hat piece. And they're both absolutely phenomenal. The hat is just, true classic to Shipwreck. But the hair is so well done. It looks like real hair. It's it's very like it alternates so much for me to have the hair and then to have the hat on, and then Polly fits on very well, and then his accessories, which I always have thought his like little flintlock pistol is just irrational, so he always has that in his holster. I'm glad he has a regular gun as well, but that's for more intimidation factor, I guess. You hear that thing go off and you get a little terrified, like a firework, I guess. It's just a big explosion. But and then the bazooka, my facial print on the bazooka is way better than the first one released. Was that Tiger Force bazooka? Yeah, so my Tiger Force bazooka has a little bit of a wonky face print, but this version is a whole lot better, so that's good. And I mean I loved that figure with the Tiger Force version. It's just his face really irked me, but this version has a fixed face, so he's a big beefy boy. They're the sculpts and the bodies that they use for him is really good. And then the Arctic bats, I love that they have 2 different heads. That helps for me with the army building, because then I can have one with like the newer updated face, and he can be like the leader, and then there's the more traditional head for what the bats have they have really cool details on them, but that can be like my regular bat, and then the one can be the leader. So this wave's great. I think they're starting to kind of get a little more shipping out of some places, so hopefully you guys don't have to wait too long for them, because these are absolutely phenomenal figures.
We were kind of on the same page about rock and roll in terms of tattoos when he was previewed, but we were a little iffy on Copperhead. Now that you have him in hand, do you think the tattoos are still out of place? Do you think it's fitting?
Honestly, it's so minimal that I think it's fine. It's one Ace of Spades, and it's well done. It was executed properly, and it's not like Roadblocks where if you move his arm it looks weird. It's just on his forearm, so there's nothing that really messes up if you rotate his arm or anything. So it doesn't bother me. If it was not on there, I wouldn't be like, oh, it's missing something. With it being on there, I don't think it's too much. But like that tattoo, and then Shipwreck's tattoo, the color on Shipwreck's is just absolutely phenomenal. He's got like the shark fin with like a gray blue that's like almost the exact same color as his shirt, but just slightly more, a little bit more noticeable. They did a really great job on his tattoos as well. So I'm all for the tattoos on all these figures. As long as they don't start doing face tattoos, I'm okay.
Talk to me a little bit about quality control. We've seen a lot of stuff in the last few waves that, I've got a cover girl whose arms doesn't stay in the socket. I've got a Lieutenant Falcon whose face has been melted off. I've gotten figures that have extra plastic on the shoulder, or they have permanent ink stains from their cape. It seems like every wave has some kind of running issue. Have you noticed anything with these figures that really stands out?
So no, I was in the same boat with like the cover girl and the Crimson Bat. So yeah, the Crimson Bat was jacked up on mine, which is weird with it being the same mold. And then the same thing with the cover girl. These guys out of the box, I have not had any issues with. Every joint is moving. And then like the heads, the alternate heads for the bats pop off really well. The joints pop or move really well. The only thing that is even remotely close to being an issue is the bazooka. On the back of Bazooka, he has like a little swivel part where you can load from the back end. That has some like weird plastic on the inside of it, but you don't see it when it's closed. So it's not really actually any issue. So nothing for me. Now maybe I'm in the minority because I also didn't get the Dusty that was all messed up. But these, for me at least, these things have been exactly how they're supposed to be. No quality issues.
That is definitely reassuring, and gives me hope that the future will have ironed out little things like this. I know that stuff is just, you can't predict how things are going to go wrong sometimes, right? And then it's too late if you've mass produced it, but it seems like more and more frequently there were, it's not deal breakers, but pretty frustrating things that keep happening in each wave. So it's nice to see a one whole wave that maybe for once is all cohesive.
Maybe.
The only figure I've gotten out of that wave is the Arctic Bat. I'm not super hyped up for it. I do think the chainsaw attachment is rad, but I haven't even opened him. I just kind of was like, okay, here's another troop builder. Blop.
The only thing that's weird about the Arctic Bat is that they they included the traditional backpack, but he doesn't come with all of the different attachments, so it just feels a little out of place. But I mean, it can hold like it can kind of hold the chainsaw, but there's like a little extra piece for the chainsaw blade that makes it kind of wonky. So that's the only thing that's weird with it. I wish they would have just given it a regular like satchel bag or something instead of trying to, use that same thing if you're not going to give us all the pieces. Now maybe they think, hey, you can swap pieces. I guess that makes sense, but it's identical to the rest of the backpacks.
I could already kind of go for a hiatus on repainted bats just for a couple of years. They'll just, much like the Viper, I feel like the Viper, I feel like I'm going to get pretty burnt out on it pretty fast. Same thing with I'm looking forward to that bazooka because I didn't even open my Tiger Force bazooka. I was like, I just want one. I'm probably not going to display it, but I really want the regular outfit bazooka. Same thing with that Recondo. So there's a lot of these figures that have kind of been out that I still haven't really interacted with or played with at all. Yeah, I mean, man, I hope those ship soon for me. I'm trying to be more patient with this type of stuff and not give in to the just that knee-jerk reaction to buy stuff, especially because I'm really die-hard saving for Kentuckiana, so I'm trying to not spend any extra money if I can help it, but I really want that shipwreck. Real bad. I want to play with that shipwreck.
And really, honestly, like this store, I mean, other than the fact that you have to pay for shipping, which some places you buy here, you still have to pay for shipping, like BBTS, they were $27.99 a piece, and with Hasbro raising prices to $24.99 and $25.99 like at BBTS, you're really not out anything different. When you can find them at places like that will. Now, if you go through eBay or sources like that, then you're going to be out quite a bit more. But if you can catch them when they're in stock, like at that place, and then I don't know how much shipping is from like Robot Kingdom, but I know some people have used them before. I've used them for other things. I haven't had any Joes from Robot Kingdom, but it's not too bad now with them raising prices. You're kind of almost right in line with now where they're selling them elsewhere.
Yeah, you don't have to sell me on it, but I am trying I'm trying to refrain. At the very least, I might actually see them at Kentucky, and I can just take them home then if I don't have them in hand. So, yeah, we'll see. I'm going to try to hang in there. I might break down and just buy a shipwreck and have him sent. Sometimes that's all it takes to just give me one to hold me over. I got enough on my plate anyway, as I am prepared to talk about now. So last week, my good friend Brian McCoy, who is the editor-in-chief of Psycho Drive-In, which just happens to be the host of this show, he messaged me on Facebook and said, hey, I was at my mom's in the attic, and I found some Joes and Star Wars figures, and I wanted you to take a look at them. And of course, I'm always happy to take a look at G.I. Joes, period. Doesn't matter what the circumstances are. I am often asked questions. It's weird when you're really well known for something. G.I. Joe is a very defining characteristic of my personality, and everybody knows it. People come to you. The figures find you after a while, I guess is what I'm saying, when you're really, really well known for it. So he lays out a lot. He's got images of about 50 figures, and he's looking for advice, identification, etc. And so I'm helping him identify what would be worth selling right away, what's worth selling as a lot, accessories that go with who, whatever. And it's a great lot. It's like early 82 to 85 stuff, all unbroken except for some O-rings that needed replacing. There's like a Snake Eyes V3 in there. If you're watching this on YouTube, I've got some images, the same images he sent me. If you're not, don't worry, I'll get into a real quick checklist here in just a second. But anyway, it's a great lot. And so I'm helping him identify some stuff. I'm saying, this is what you need to do. This needs to go with this. These figures are incomplete. Here's a Zap V1 with unbroken thumbs. That's a hot spot. You could probably get, $50+ for that. No sweat. I said, regardless of what you do, you've got 2 Cobra, the enemy V1s, and 2 Cobra officer V1s. Of the 4 of them, they all have flawless Cobra logos. I was like, well, regardless, whatever you do, these 4 figures are mine. We'll figure something out, but I'm not going to let these get away from me because they're so clean. I knew it would be a substantial upgrade to the ones I already have in my collection. Anyway, we do a little bit more talking. He says, well, I was like, if you want to get rid of the whole lot, let me know. And he said, okay, well, how much, if I keep a couple of these key figures, how much of it just give you the whole thing? And I made him an offer that I thought was pretty fair. Again, Brian is a friend. I don't want to rip him off, but we've got to find a happy medium to where I can kind of at least make my money back. And that's what I offered him. I said, I'm not saying you can't make more money than this. I'm saying you're going to have to put the work in because it's going to require a little bit of elbow grease. And so he agrees to sell me the whole lot, which is awesome. So I get all the figures here. I open them up. I'm going to start telling you who's in this assortment right now. So we already covered there's 4 Cobras, 2 Cobra, the enemies, 2 Cobra officers. There's a Crimson Guard with a perfect logo. There's a Scrap Iron. There's both a Hooded Cobra Commander and a Faceplate Cobra Commander. There's a Baroness V1, Copperhead V1, Destro V1, Major Blood V1, Zartan V1 with all the knee pads. The chest plate is hidden mask piece. Barbecue, his tank driver. There's another Cobra with a faded logo. Storm Shadow V1, Torch V1, Ace V1, Spirit V1, Stalker V1, Doc V1, Snake Eyes V3, Thunder V1, Torpedo, Gung Ho, Airtight, Duke, Scarlet, Roadblock, Alpine, Cutter, Mutt and Junkyard, Silver Pads, Grand Slam, Clutch, Airborne, Zap, Bazooka. Okay, anyway, there's a ton of characters. There's about 50 Joes. It's all OGs. We're talking first 2 or 3 years. They are beautiful. Some of these figures are some of the finest examples I've ever seen in my life. They're more than just unbroken. They are all practically in an unheard of, unplayed with condition. So I'm ecstatic. In my mind, I don't need to buy any more G.I. Joes. I have all the vintage figures. So every time I do something like this, it's just an exercise in how much I just want to get my hands on figures. So the mentality here is I'm going to take the figures that are better than what I have on my shelf, and I'm going to upgrade them. And then I'll sell the inferior version and make hopefully all of my money back, but at least most of it. And then that way at the very least, I've spent a tiny bit of money for a significant upgrade in my collection. And I'm here to tell you, of the stuff that I got, probably, I'd say 3/4 of what I got was superior than what I already had in my collection. Almost all of the original 83 Joes, the 1.5s, were superior, have just some really solid paint. That Silver Pads Grand Slam just looks untouched, and both the Grand Slam, the Flash, like all the OG guys were clean. That's also not getting into the fact that there was a bunch of little like gems for me that I actually did add to the collection. The Duke that he has the sticker, the American flag sticker, which was originally only labeled as the mail-away version. It's one of the only ways I think you can tell the 2 Dukes apart. And it was still intact. So I've never had one of those. Great find. There was a Spirit in that lot that came with a Freedom, and it has an unbroken claw or feet or whatever you want to call it, which I've also never had. I mean, ever. When I inherited the Spirit and Freedom from my brother, it had already been broken by that point. I had never replaced it. So there were some cool little things that I got to add into my collection that have kind of been on my checklist for a long time that I've just never really taken the time to actively seek out without having to buy a whole other figure, because Freedom's broken feet are very common. So I upgraded a ton of the collection, and basically still have one of every figure. I broke like 3 figures in the process. Roadblock's backpack broke off. Cutter, something happened with Cutter's screw when I was taking it apart, and I destroyed that Zartan. I was trying to, every single one of them had to have their O-rings changed. So this was like 40 plus O-rings. I spent multiple days going through it and changing them all out. I was even asking questions online about, is this the right O-ring? Oh, these guys are swivel necks. Because it's just been so long. It's been so long since I've done that much maintenance on G.I. Joes. It was like a tremendous amount of work. It was fun, but I was trying to just basically revive all of them. So anyway, yeah, I got a great lot out of it. I've sorted it all. I've already basically pieced out what's left, and I got it listed on eBay. I listed some stuff as bigger lots and some stuff as individuals, like those Cobra officers. They look so clean and so nice. I thought they'll probably attract some attention on their own. And like I said, if I'm lucky, I'll at least make enough to break even on it. I'm pretty excited about it. I offered some stuff to Jaren, but he doesn't want it because I guess he just doesn't. Jaren, I think it's safe to say we pretty much, it's pretty much unsaid, but you've basically have completely stopped collecting vintage G.I. Joes. Is that correct?
I have mostly because of space limitations and just budget limitations. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I did a lot of collecting very fast, and I think the amount of OG figures I have, if I actually sat down and listed them out, would be more than I think most people listening would have expected, and maybe
Hmm.
even more than you think I have still. Just because of the random pickups I would find, but it's just, I've got now the his tanks coming, the Dragonfly will be coming, and then they're definitely going to keep doing HasLabs because they keep funding. So I feel like I don't want to spend a bunch of money on beautiful vintage figures that will sit in a tote. That just feels wrong to me. For me, if I'm not trying to judge anybody else's collection, but for me, I don't want to have a bunch of figures that are, because I think the O-ring figures are still the most beautiful versions of GI Joes, and there's just something about them. But I don't want to have those just sitting in a tote and then have all my 6 inch out, and I'm gonna keep collecting 6 inch because that's where my collection has kind of, you know, where the orbit of my collection is. So it's just kind of been out of necessity. I mean, I've also completely stopped collecting uh, pretty much everything else. I'm almost with you, Greg, where it's like GI Joe is the only thing. Yeah, it's just my whole collection is skewing 6 inch, so it's just kind of where it's going to be, and I might get rid of some of the vintage, especially because I like vehicles with the vintage, and that's a lot of space that is taken up by vehicles. Like, I mean, I've got my whale, I've got my two different Sky Strikers, my Hammerhead. Those take up a whole shelf of the bookcases that I have. So at least for right now, until I get this room actually done how I want it, I just don't want to dedicate a bunch of space and time and money to things that might end up just being in storage. So that's kind of where it's been. And as much as I would love to get a great deal on a Snake Eyes V3, it's that money is also going to go towards the 800 classified pre-orders and the HasLab that are all going to be getting funded here before too long, or getting shipped out before too long.
I respect that. It's a bummer, but I totally get where you're coming from. I kind of have the opposite problem. I laid out my room for my vintage and modern collection, and then classified kind of came along as a post note. And I have absolutely nowhere to put that stuff at all. Even this, I was doing buy one, keep one. Even that has become very challenging because those boxes just take up so much space in my closet that I could really use for other stuff. And the classified figures I have, they're never all together. It's just like, or they're not, there's no visibility with them at all. It's probably part of the reason that I have a little bit of classified burnout, is that it's just hard for me to find a way to enjoy them because I can never really they're never really around. Basically, they're either put up or put out of side, or I just don't even have room to open some of them. I've really cut back I'm trying to only open definitive versions. So if I get another version of anything, I'm not planning on opening it. It's why I'm retroactively I'm not opening Tiger Force Bazooka or Tiger Force Recondo, because I know that's not the version that's going to go on display, wherever that may be. But yeah, if you sell those vehicles, you come to me and I'll take care of them for you. I got a real problem. I don't. Everything I need in the vintage world is almost always exclusively parts. But if somebody comes to me and has a lot of anything, I, in my heart, am like, even if I can't make any money off of it, I can at least know I get them into the hands of people that will really appreciate them and do something with them. It's weird. I'm so attached to my toy collection. I feel a little weird about getting rid of figures that I've had for a really long time. Some of the figures I'm like, these might trace back to my actual childhood, but I have such a strict enforcement on not keeping duplicates of hardly anything because room is such a necessity. It's such a vital component of what I'm doing here. So I'm like, I can't justify keeping it, but I also really don't want to keep an inferior version when I have access to a superior one. So yeah, there's a possibility that I'm upgrading an Airborne out of that collection. I'm thinking this might actually be my first ever G.I. Joe. It feels real, I don't know, it feels weird putting him up on
can't
eBay.
get rid of that one.
Dude, it doesn't. There's no stopping that.
I don't
The
think I
bulk
have
of
an
my.
airborne. I'll buy your airborne from you, just so that I have your original airborne.
Well, he's in pretty rough shape, but he's complete, or he's unbroken at least.
Well, he's got heart and soul behind him. I won't let you get rid of him.
The bulk of my collection was at one point almost all of my childhood collection. I probably had more than half of the line when it ended, and I never got rid of hardly any of it except for there was an era before I learned the secrets of disassembling a GI Joe to repair or rearrange the parts, where they would make a new version of it. This sucks so much. This is such a horrible story, but I'm sure I'm not the only kid growing up that grew up with GI Joe that did this. If they would come out with a second version of a figure, a V2, a V3, a V4, I would kind of be like, well, this makes the previous version obsolete, right? I don't need two grunts, two stalkers. So I would take the old figure and they would kind of become like, when I learned how to take them apart, they became spare parts. Prior to that, I don't know what happened to them, but I know that I lost a lot of the gold mine figures because they would get a new version of it. I want you to picture that in your head, that Grunt V2 came out and childhood Greg went, yeah, this is a way better version than Grunt V1. Two polar opposite figures that represent the purest part of the line and the most ghastly aspects of the line. But that was my thinking back then. It was just like, and that's what I made my Joes out of. My custom Joes were made out of Joes that had been replaced with quote unquote superior versions. And so you can think in your head those were the most popular characters. So the really good stuff from my collection got disassembled by me. And when you go look at some of my old customs, it'll be like, oh my God, that's a Zap V1 or a Scarlet V1 that I just painted over or broke and put a robot hand on or something crazy like that. Anyway, yeah. So all I'm saying was there's still a pretty decent chunk of my collection that is my true childhood collection. And it's weird, but I can kind of tell if I pick the figure up and just kind of like look it over, there's specific defects in the average figure that if you've seen it long enough, I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember this. He had this mark when I was a kid. I probably wrote it into the story that he got shot there or something, and that's why his camouflage is blurred in that specific part. Or quick kicks. I don't know if all quick kicks wore on their feet really badly, but I have a quick kick V1 and his toes are like black instead of flesh tone because the paint wore off there. And I don't know if that's a common flaw. I suspect it is, but if I saw, I could draw what that foot looks like with the missing paint because, I mean, Quick Kick was a martial artist. He used his feet all the time, so I've looked at it hundreds of thousands of times since I was a child. I know exactly what it looks like. Funny little things like that I think about sometimes in my collection, how intimate I really do know the figures that I own. Anyway, weird sidetrack. Sorry, guys. That's going to do it for us today. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you guys had a great holiday. And, actually July 4th is the 2-year celebration since we launched the YouTube channel. So happy 2 years to us. Here's to many more. And we hope you'll join us for those many more years. But if you can't if you can't commit to that, we at least hope to hear from you again in 2 short weeks where anything's available for discussion here on Anything Joe's.